So currently, we have a national food import bill of just under $200 million. More specifically, I think it's 197. If you look at the islands of CARICOM, or the OECS or CARICOM, we are, by virtue of population, because again, you have most countries being, in some cases, twice, three times our size. And so if you look at it and in the general context, we are still less than most other countries in the context of dollar value. But if you look at it by percentage of consumption versus production, we are not performing as well as we should be. Once I got into office last August, about 2 days after being sworn in, I traveled to Trinidad to partake in a conference. And at that conference, we discussed the 25 by 25 agenda for CARICOM. And I've been leading on that agenda as far as the national forefront ever since. So the whole idea of that is to have our food import bill reduced by 25% by 2025. And in another context, it's really increasing productivity on the island by 25% of your food import bill by 2025. And so that is where we're spearheading our agenda. So I participated with a number of heads of state and ministers of agriculture, the likes of Mia Motley and others from, and Ali from Guyana, and a number of other Caribbean leaders. And we discussed CARICOM's effort to band together and ensure that it's not just an individual island effort, but a CARICOM effort. But more specifically to SKNIS, we have also come together, the Minister of Agriculture in Nevis and myself, to really put a plan together that encompasses both islands and not just look at it individually. I believe we've put a wonderful framework together to help us meet that agenda. We've looked at our limitations, we've looked at our opportunities, and indeed we've looked at the threats that could prohibit us getting there. And I believe we've found ways and mechanisms to minimize the threats, maximize on the opportunities, and ensure that by 2025, we could be speaking as a success story for CARICOM's agenda. Where we are now is invested in ensuring that we do it. It's quite a complex matter, but if I were to simplify it, I would say this. We are called Niamiga for a reason. We have some of the most fertile lands throughout the region. We have been struggling more recently with drought conditions as a matter of climate change, and that is indeed one of the threats that we are faced with. However, I believe that once we are able to implement projects like our greenhouse villages, we could help to mitigate the challenges and the risks of climate change. Again, to be able to manage our water resource effectively and produce more with less, it's a wonderful way forward towards meeting the increased production. But a lot of it really comes from understanding what the limitations are and realizing opportunities to advance beyond those limitations. And so we've also looked at support mechanisms for farmers, and we just had cabinet approved this year the drought resilience project that we put forward, which will help our farmers to enhance production. We are looking at our machinery pool so that we can mechanize a lot more of our production. We are looking at developing our agro-processing to preserve some of our food post-harvest, because the truth is what we recognize, that we have lost 60% about of our food post-harvest. And we are also putting significant effort into our feral animal control program. So we've looked at that at different stages. One, opening new markets, because some of why some of the food has been lost at ripening is because some of the farmers don't have an adequate market, and so they leave the fruit on the tree longer than it ought to be, and then it becomes subject to a number of different factors. Secondly, we're looking at proper storage. So we have been enhancing our storage facilities. We are installing more storage facilities at the Department of Agriculture and at some of our satellite stations around the country as well. And with the greenhouse villages, we are set to have storage facilities there as well, and we want to have a number of villages around the island. But beyond that, we are also looking at, again, agro-processing. So there's increased marketing so that we could increase sales, improvement in storage, and agro-processing, where some of this food, if not sold, can be processed into value-added products and easier to export by that mechanism. Also, a lot of it is training as well. And so we've been discussing with an expert out of the University of the West Indies who is scheduled to be here sometime this year to train some of our farmers in best practices post-harvest as well. So it's training, improved storage, increased marketing and sales, agro-processing. So there are a number of different mechanisms in place, looking at the full chain along the way. Transport. So there are different areas where it's lost, and we try to make sure that we can mitigate along each different aspect. As minister, coming from the background of being a farmer myself, from being a businessman myself, I see the injustice that maybe our past has done to us, where farmers see themselves as laborers and not an entrepreneur. And being the minister of both agriculture and the minister of entrepreneurship, it gives me the perfect opportunity to bridge that gap. And so now I treat farmers holistically as entrepreneurs. And when I go to negotiate anything for entrepreneurship, I negotiate based also on the basis of agriculture, so that the farmers are now exposed to any opportunity as any small business person. Reduce rates on loans, whatever facility, because I want them to understand that you are an entrepreneur. Likewise, our musician and artists, again, you are entrepreneurs. And so as it relates to our farmers and agriculture, I have really been trying to encourage them, and we want to integrate them into the entrepreneurship programs so that they get the same training: business management, marketing, accounting. You want them to receive the same training, because a lot of it is really a lack of training and a lack of understanding.
And record keeping is a big part of it as well.
Correct. So all that would be part of the accounting courses. So as a part of our mandate within the Ministry of Entrepreneurship, we are conducting regular training to support our business people, which include our farmers, as they are now really considered entrepreneurs, to enhance their skill sets in all these different areas. We've had a number of farmers reach out, expressing their interest to really be a part of it. We conduct regular meetings with farmers, and I believe that by 2024, we'll see a significant increase in our food production, leading into 2025, where we should see ourselves meeting that target. But our farmers are excited about the entire agenda. I think in the initial stages, like, you have to think about it like this. We were once a dominant agriculture state. However, it was monocrop. It was sugar production, and we were at a certain tier in the entire value chain of sugar production, which saw us just at the, and I don't want to say the bottom end, but it was really more closer to the bottom end of it, where we were the primary producer. What I want our farmers, and we left that in 2025, 2024, 2025, thereabout. After leaving that, some 17, 18 years ago, agriculture has been, you know, dwindling in terms of its significance to our country's GDP, going from the dominant contributor to now just over 1%. And that diminishing value is more reflecting the psychological impact that agriculture has had and the diminishing value in the psyche of our people. I want to bring that back, but to a higher level, where we now understand that we can control the entire value chain. Because what did we do? We produced the sugar cane, we did some level of processing and exported it. And then it was shipped off and processed into other value-added products. We now have the ability to do that entire line on island. And so all the added value that was gained by other societies can now be gained by ours. But how do you get people to understand that off the bat when they have never been exposed to that? And that's where education comes in. And so first, some of the farmers that may not be, readily accepting, we invite them in for a discussion. And, after a few discussions, we've realized that our farmers are ready to go forward. They just need the right, I think we just need to communicate with them the right way. And so far, so good. The greenhouses are on island and ready to be erected. And so one of the hindrances that we have at this present moment is that we are in the middle of the hurricane season, and we recognize that it may not be the most ideal plan to erect them until we are cleared of the season. And so what we are doing now is more the preparation to begin erecting them later this year. In our initial phase, our first village will see some about 15 to 16 greenhouses being erected. And what we will do is have a very all-inclusive approach to it by getting the farmers within these communities that the greenhouses are to be a part of determining who's most suited for these greenhouses. And so it's really an all-of-society approach that we're taking, because what we want to do is get the most ideal farmers into these greenhouses, because our ultimate goal is productivity. And so once we pick the best farmers that's most suited for the greenhouse, then we know the rest of the community had an input in that, and that they will be part of securing that and ensuring productivity occurs. Water has become a most valued resource for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Not that it has not been valuable all the time, but I think we recognize the critical importance of water more recently with the effects that we are feeling with the droughts. Our farmers can attest to that more specifically because it has hindered their productivity significantly. But I am happy to say that we have really delved into the matter, and I think we have some short-term and some medium to long-term plans underway. Now, in the short term, what we want to do is work on the provision of water tanks and water harvesting features for our farmers. So that way they can harvest water on their farms, store it. But beyond the water tanks and the harvesting feature, we want to ensure that our farmers have adequate access to drip irrigation, because what that does is help them to use the water more efficiently, and it is more effective in conserving our valuable resource of water. We have also discussed the provision of ground covering, which also helps in preserving water by offering a sort of mulch that retains moisture in the soil, and that whole retention of moisture would mean less water would have to be used to keep your crop at an adequate hydration level. And so with all of these initiatives, I would say, it's really about preserving the water by controlling the use of the water, making sure that you can use just what you need, making sure that you minimize wastage, making sure that you can harvest the water on site, which reduces the demand on the national grid. And also, going into the medium to long term, we have also looked at the use of some of the brackish wells that may not be as suitable for homes, but could be used within the agriculture field. And we've been in discussions with the water department, and I think we are getting significant success in that endeavor. And I believe by 2024, we should see the Ministry of Agriculture being able to tap into some of these wells to provide water onto farms that prior would not have had access to a constant running water.